Hello, welcome to episode 8 of Rise and Hoop. Um,
The
we
Age of
we're at
Accountability
the Age
episode.
of Accountability episode, so we'll give everyone the baptism discussion, get everyone to commit to baptism. But really, we're excited here. Obviously, we're still recording because there's a lot going on. We made it 8 episodes. So just to start, you'll probably notice a different background. Did not remodel my house. I am back east in Orlando for our work conference right now. I know the quality of our show is so stellar that people think this is our full time job, and then we research for the show throughout the week. Um, but covering BYU is not Ryan and my full time job. So here for work for a couple days in the hotel room, but we're still grinding. It's 11:15 Eastern time right now, 10:15 Central time. So BYU basketball never sleeps.
This is March, as John Rothstein would say.
Yep,
We'll
and Ryan
sleep in
Rasmussen.
May, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am glad that you're getting to experience, the flip side of being on the later time zone. So,
Yeah, because
you know,
usually it's like 9 p.m. my time, 11 p.m. your time when we
yeah,
start, and we finish like midnight your time. Me and I go out and watch a show before I go to bed because it's still like 10 p.m. So like I can watch like a little 30-minute show and then get to bed
hit the hay.
10:45. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a good feeling. But I mean, yeah, man, Sweet 16.
I know it feels like we
It's
we talked about the very end of last episode. Like if I could give myself a little credit for I think for giving BYU some good mojo. So last week BYU's game, I'm normally live in Pacific time in Seattle, so BYU's game was slated to start 4:45 Pacific time. So my sister-in-law lives in the area. She went was going to the temple for the first time, and she's also a BYU fan. But she weeks ago, I mean, most people aren't gonna think about like the second game like a month out, especially if you're not like a diehard. But she scheduled her temple session for 4 o'clock on Pacific on Saturday, so 45 minutes before the BYU tip, which is fine. I remember thinking before, I was like, oh, that could be when BYU plays, but
yeah.
I'll still go to the temple, try to have my priorities straight. And sure enough, yeah, BYU tipped off at 4 o'clock. So going to the game, I was like, before the game was Texas A&M, Michigan. I was hoping for triple, quadruple overtime, so I wouldn't miss much. Because honestly, I expected to miss like the first half of the BYU game. But before at first I got pushed back 15 minutes before I went to the temple. I was like, okay, great. And then I didn't watch it, but apparently like the game just kept going on. You said right because then I got out of the
Uh-huh.
temple and checked my phone. I was like, oh, there's 17 minutes in the first half. I even got to the first media timeout left, so I missed pretty much nothing. So true blessings from on high given to me, and then I like to think my sacrifice, maybe gave BYU. That can't confirm or deny if I put Brother Kevin Young on the prayer roll, but no, I did not. I tried, I try not to go too far, but no, it worked out, and then got to watch a historic win, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Jaeger's been playing, I would have guessed that you put his name on the temporal, but
Yeah,
you know,
Brother Igor Demon. Yeah,
Brother Devin, yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, that game it drug on and on the Michigan A&M game, and I was just in the back of my mind, I was like, hey, this will work out for Robbie, and then it also ended up working out for the Cougs. So
yeah,
yeah, man, just what a game. I mean, honestly, right? Like it's fun. This is one of those games where it's like, going into it, we're like, hey, beat VCU, and it's all house money from there. And it's easy to say that before the game tips off and like
hmm
before BYU goes out into like getting into like 20 point, roughly 20, 15, maybe we're never quite up 20 points, but
yeah.
we're in command of the game.
And
I
we're up
mean,
like
from
what
when you
11
checked
at
in,
11 at halftime, so it's like,
hmm
okay, now it's gonna hurt if we lose.
it changes everything. It changes everything. As soon as like you look that good and you're in control of the game and you're playing that well, yeah, at that point you're so invested, you're so deep into it, and you feel like the better team too, which I think by and large they might have had the best player in Tonje, just how well he played. He had
Yeah,
a
he
bonkers
was
night.
awesome.
Yeah, incredible. But as far as a team, it took all of that from Tonje just to keep the game close and to get it close late. Couple maybe questionable or technicalities on the technical right for Dawson Baker that kind of ended up that was really a big momentum swing near the end that kind of I feel like gave them an extra push to make it possible for them to surge a little bit late. But I felt like BYU was the better team throughout the night, which is really cool when you're already the underseed in that matchup, and just being able to complete the game in that way.
Yeah, I know. I try to I mean, it's a long season like basketball. Like it's not like a Major League Baseball season where it's 162 games, but it's also not like a college football season where you have one game a week. It's kind of in between. So like there is a lot of it. You could watch 2 games a week mostly for basketball, so you could really get invested into the team. So it's like I really do try to just enjoy the journey and enjoy the moments, because I mean BYU's tournament success has been so futile. Like it's the first time ever BYU's made a Sweet 16 without the National Player of the Year. This is because the tournament expanded to 32 teams in 1975. And like since then, BYU's only made the Sweet 16 with Danny Ainge in 81, and then obviously Jimmer in 2011. So I mean, this season, I mean, Kevin Young's first season, because 11 months ago, like the hope was when Mark Pope, like after losing it to Duquesne, it's like, hey, let's run it back with Pope. Let's bring back all of our guys. Let's bring back Jackson Robinson, Richie, Dallin, Ali Khalifa, Noah Waterman, like Trevin, and like just build on that core. And then Mark Pope leaves, you're like, oh, like we're screwed. We got to start over. And then Kevin Young, it was exciting, and then what he built, and obviously BYU has lots of NIL. They had some returning pieces, but it's Kevin Young's first year in college, and oftentimes when NBA coaches come to college, they don't succeed. Like I think of like Mike Woodson at Indiana, he struggled. Like when Patrick Ewing was at Georgetown, he struggled. Like Juwan Howard at Michigan had some success, but he also ended up getting fired. So NBA guys oftentimes don't. So, but Kevin Young's really broke the mold this year and opened the doors for a lot of college basketball. And having the success he had, and like that game versus Michigan, like maybe future years, like this will become the norm for BYU, and maybe Sweet 6 teams will become the expectation and not feel special anymore. It's kind of funny. I mean, this is kind of going off topic, but I have a friend and like coworker who's like a Clemson fan, and he's like, now it's just it's not even fun like when Clemson wins anymore. It gets to the playoff, because it's like they've won national championships. So he's like, in some ways, like being a fan's not fun when it's national championship or bust every year. He's like, you can't really just enjoy like a big win over Florida State or a win over non-conference win over Georgia or whoever. It's more just a relief. It's like, hey, we can do that. Now we're just on our goal. And if you lose a couple games, it's like, hey, season's over. He's like, honestly, it's taken some joy out of the fandom. And I guess on one hand, I hope we get to that point.
Yeah,
of BYU football basketball
it's
fans.
a good problem to have if that's your biggest issue.
I know, where we win so much that like it just like takes like almost the joy out of winning. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I want to win. Like I want to experience. It's like people say more money, more problems. It's like, oh, well, give me all the money and I'll decide you know, if it's actually a problem. Yeah. It's kind of that, yeah, okay, let me win so much. Let me be like Alabama, Clemson, whoever's done in football, and then I'll decide. So, like, obviously want to win a lot, but at the same time, I never want to just, like, not enjoy, like, the journey of, like, and only enjoy the end results. Like, okay, we won a championship. Okay, good. Now let's do it again. Like, and that was a really cool, like, VCU win was awesome. It's just, like, that was, like, breaking the shackles. And then people were, because I think going to the VCU game, a lot of us were like, it's like, okay, wait, we're probably better than VCU, but it's like we're so just, like, not wanting to, like, put our hope out there because we've been broken so much. And then once we beat VCU, everyone's like, okay, we're beating Wisconsin, even though Wisconsin's, like, a better team. And then, like, we actually beat Wisconsin. It's like had the big lead, almost blew it, and then just had another defensive stop at the end. Like, it was really a cool one. I was jumping up and down in my living room with my wife after the game. It's just a really just cool moment. Just that's what the fun part of sports is, and that's what I try to enjoy. Even though like I'm really into the weeds of BYU basketball, like I really just at the end of the day like enjoy the journey, and like this is fun. Like that's how that's ultimately what I want to keep onto when I watch sports in BYU.
100%. Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things too where it's easy to slip it or like let it slip, but even with the matchup with Bama, still not the spread isn't anything crazy. I think it opened 4.5 favor for Alabama, and I think it's up to about 5.5. But most of these games in the Sweet 16, just with how elite some of the top teams are, there is a pretty BYU's actually one of the closest spreads of all of the 8 matchups in the Sweet 16. I noticed. But it's easy to kind of lose that perspective. Like even if maybe it's an ugly game for whatever reason, that for me it's like the VCU win. I mean, even just the last month, really since we started recording the podcast, I mean, it's just been a blast. Just tuning in, watching us, pull off road wins against major teams, pull off upsets,
blow out Kansas,
blowout. Yeah, I mean, it all started with that blowout of Kansas, which maybe wasn't as amazing as it ended up being, at the end of the day. But it's still Kansas. Yeah, and it was having a traditional blue blood in the Marriott Center for the first time in forever, right? And so it's just cool things like that. Like I'm with you. That's where I find I have a hard time letting sports like bring me sorrow, I guess. Like don't get me wrong, like if we lose to Alabama, like it'll sting, right? And it does sting, like in football this year when we let the Kansas game slip through our fingers. Like it's there's some pain there, and there should be, but at the end of the season, for football, I'm like, we went 11-2. Like this was an amazing year. The games were so fun. I was at the SMU game with my daughter and some friends, and watching that game, I literally thought these are two of the worst teams maybe in the country playing each other. And it turned out that was not even close to the case. It just looked really like two teams trying to lose the game. Turned out they actually were, just two really good teams battling it out. So it's even for me, just that perspective, seeing how, I'm there, I'm having fun. That was the furthest thing from my mind, us winning 10 or 11 games at the beginning of the season where, we were more looking for, let's get to a bowl. Let's try to win 6, 7, maybe 8 games. 8 wins would be a great bounce back after a 5-win season, right? And even this year for basketball, kind of same idea. We're losing our coach. We had a lot of cool momentum. We lost I was going to say, when you mentioned some of the fallout from losing Pope, we lost Colin Chandler, who was going to be, if I'm recalling, I think the highest recruit. Was he going to be the highest rated recruit we ever signed? And the crazy thing was we actually ended up, even outside of AJ, we signed other recruits that were right in that same caliber. So it's kind of hard to taper maybe some of the expectations, just because, to Kevin Young's credit, he did run back. Like he restored the most important pieces, keeping Richie, keeping Dallin Hall, and then bringing over some other signings. Kozlowski, like getting him to come back over. That was somebody that people were kind of upset or felt like that was a knock on Pope. Probably should have landed that kid. His mom does the halftime show on BYU TV. Like, what's going on there type of thing. But, to Kevin Young's credit, he totally, he kind of snatched this season out of the jaws of defeat, but only in the sense of like where BYU was last year. He was trying to just keep up and, hey, let me get BYU in the tournament again. And he didn't just end up doing that. He's at this point, we've more than exceeded expectations. Still a great season. Even if we had lost to VCU, it would still be a good season in my book. But it just continues. It's just a gift that keeps on giving, and it's been so much fun.
Totally. Yeah. So I guess, we don't probably spend too much time on the Wisconsin game because I think people are probably looking more ahead to the Bama game now. But I guess just some of my highlights. Offense is just humming right now. And it was fun, like going into the game. Like, VCU is harder stylistically, but Wisconsin's defensive, overall, their KenPom defensive rating is actually a couple spots higher than VCU. So Wisconsin, they're known for their offense, lots of points, and obviously we saw that Tanjay, my thought going to the game that he'd be the best guard BYU saw all year, and I think that held up. In the second half, he cooked us. Other than the last possession where I guess we could talk about that. Was that Tanjay just cooked us in the second half? But BYU's offense, part of it, and this is kind of foreshadowing, which I think BYU could have success against Wisconsin because Wisconsin, they're very sound defensively. They got two bigs. They protect the paint, but they don't force turnovers. So like they don't hedge on ball screens. They don't blitz ball screens. They do more drop coverage. And Yegor, like he feasts on that. Like we've seen like Houston, Iowa State, he struggles when teams blitz him physical guards, physical bigs. But like when he could just turn the corner on a ball screen, man, he is so good. Like 11 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and 1 turnover. And the one turnover was bad. It was at the end. We had the inbounds bounce pass to Trevenel and went out of bounds. But he didn't have any turnovers in the flow of the offense. So like when Yegor is just like dealing, when he could turn the corner, attack the defense in the paint, it's like he could either score or he could find his teammates like for open shots. And like Yegor, he's like the pinnacle of like everything that happens. I mean, Richie Saunders was awesome, but like Yegor as the point guard is like the point man for BYU's offense, and Dallin Hall too when he comes in the game. So I mean, just BYU's offense is really good. The defense was good to start, and then just like really had no answer for Tanjay. But at the end of the game, I mean, Mag was just sound defensively. I mean, there was the clip. I also saw different angles of it, but just like stayed right on him, was vertical, and then forced the air ball. So I mean, it's interesting. Like BYU's 3 best wins this year was at Arizona, who's a 4 seed and still in the tournament, at Iowa State, who's out of the tournament, but they were fully healthy. They had Keyshawn Gilbert. They're a 3 seed. And then this Wisconsin game. I'd say those are BYU's 3 best wins. And all 3 of those wins, like the offense carried them like in all those games. Like BYU had scored 96 Arizona, 88 at Iowa State, and 91 at Wisconsin. But they won each of those games with a defensive stop at the end. Like at the end of double overtime versus Iowa State, like Mag was shutting down Gilbert, forced it. Momcilovic, Trey Stewart was in the corner, forced the air ball. BYU won that game. And then Arizona, obviously Richie made those 2 free throws, but there were still 3 seconds left. But Trey Stewart he denied the ball to Caleb Love, and then they threw the ball. Richie stole it. Won that game with the defensive stand. And obviously this game, offense kind of carried him. But end of the game, Mag, one-on-one with Tanjay, shut him down. So BYU's offense is good, but honestly, that's kind of like the NBA model. And Kevin Young is not trying to not stop teams, but BYU's defense wants to stop them. But like the NBA model is like everyone could score offense. This BYU team could score, but you have to be good situationally on defense. And this BYU team, when it counts situationally, they are really good. They have a good line. They put Mag in there. They pick Trey in there. They have Kaba. They have Richie. All really good defenders. So BYU's defense, like in future years, if you want to win the national championship, BYU's going to be better consistently on defense. But this team, they're at least good situationally on defense. In the past years, BYU hasn't been that way because BYU hasn't had good individual defenders. But since BYU has good individual defenders on this team, they're good, like really good on offense, and then they put their defense lineup in and get a stop when they need to. And that's what this team, like that's what makes them really good. Like they not going to stop you, but when it counts, like this team has come through. So like that's the NBA model because everyone scores, but the BYU could, when they need stops, they've gotten stops to win games.
Yeah, and Kevin Young has been so good. Like at the end of the Wisconsin game, he had 2 of like the best timeouts. Like, not that that's a hard motion, to call for a timeout, but just situationally, it was the ball getting stuck. I think one of the times he got the ball, it might have even been both times, the ball kind of got stuck with Yegor, where they tried to move the ball around and it got down into like 9-8 seconds. And you could tell, we've seen that happen throughout the season, just at times where that's about the time when Yegor generally starts to struggle. When there's enough time and the ball's moving around, usually someone gets free. Yegor's able to make a good pass to an open guy that can pull up a good shot or get a fake up and get into the paint, keep the ball moving. And Wisconsin was kind of they weren't really letting that ball movement and flow happen. And Kevin Young, both of those times, just calling a timeout, saying he kind of could sense and see we don't have we're not ready for, we're not going to execute.
He has a really good sense in late games when to call timeouts.
Very good. And you kind of bring up those games, and I feel like those 3 big wins we've had, I mean, down the stretch, just how close those games have been, I feel like he's done that at different moments in all of those games that have just kind of helped, he can see, especially at the college level, like in the NBA, that's probably not something that you're running into as much, like, oh no, Kevin Durant has the ball with 8 seconds left. Like, oh, I better call a timeout, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not really running into those situations very often. But with like a true freshman, with Yegor, other players on the court, you might be like, hey, they're kind of a little off their A game right there. They're not, in a good state. Let's call a timeout. Let's get a play call. Let's get the ball to Richie. Let's let Richie, drive to the hoop and draw a foul. Let's try to set up something that will, get us some points and keep giving us some cushion to help us have enough to win the game. So yeah, to your point, I mean, he's got the right pieces, and then he just continues to also just play them at the right time too, and it's awesome to see. I was terrified that Tonje was going to pull up for three when he came up, because
I was like, just don't give up a 3-point attempt.
That's
Like if he gets a wide open layup, I mean, we might lose in overtime, but so be it. Like, don't give up a 3.
Yeah. I was terrified because Mag kind of sagged back. I think he definitely didn't want to give him too much space. Like, didn't want to be so close that he's going to end up, beating him down the side or anything like that. And luckily he didn't. I don't know. I
played it perfectly,
I was
obviously.
certain that he was going to pull for it, just with how hot he had been too. I thought he was going to pull for it. Mag then recovered, and then he drove on him, and yeah, the defense was just perfect. But that was my heart sank for a half a second there. Like, I thought, oh no. Like,
I know. I was like, I know, because it's like over time we would go over. It's like BYU had a great season. That would have been the hindsight, but man, that would have been such a dagger if Tonje would have pulled up for a 3 right there. Like,
such a dagger. And like, what's assuming he would have made it? Not a guarantee, but but still, yeah. Just the way that I mean, it was that final defensive possession by Mag was just he's been just such a key player, and it's awesome. Like, he doesn't fill up the stat sheet every time. I think we've kind of said that, but man, if he is not in some of these most pivotal moments, just making clutch plays, and it's awesome. Kevin Young knows he can rely on him. He's like, there's not a question, right, of who's going to be like in that situation. We knew who's going to be locking up, assigned to guard Tonje for the final.
You knew what the matchup was going to be. You knew Tonje was going to have the ball. You knew Mag was going to be on him. There's like,
no question.
Yeah, just like, okay, let's go see what happens.
Yeah, even without, like, last thing maybe on the Wisconsin game, but just taking even the fandom out of it. In hindsight, I'm obviously not able to do that watching the game, like, just so dialed in.
Yeah.
But like, looking back, what a game too! Like, just an incredible round of 32 matchup.
Right, top 5, top 3 game of the tournament so far. Like, probably the Maryland buzzer beater one was number 1, but this game was probably 2 or 3, like, right there. It's just entertainment value.
So, and especially just having, like, BYU more well-rounded, just good team, lots of different players making plays, whether it's a Keba dunk, it's Richie just grinding, Yegor doing everything, hitting some big shots, Nell getting some good looks, and then just the other side is just Tonje's just cooking.
Yeah,
like,
he cooked us. Yeah,
just cooking. And so it's a fun, I mean, just from a fan perspective, it's always fun watching those games where you're like, you can tell this team's better, but this team has the best player. And you could, I think at halftime, Wisconsin was just like, all right, if we're going to get back in this game, we're going to win. We're just going to ride Tonje as far as he'll take us. And he had him close.
You know what I want to see? I want to see Mag guarding Cooper Flag in the Elite 8. Like,
it's giving me goosebumps right there.
Better stop for people.
Yeah, we need that. That's what Stephen A. was telling AJ. Like, well, how are you going to play Duke if you go to BYU?
Stephen A.
I mean, that would be the icing on the cake. I don't even care what happens.
I mean, I don't want to talk about too much, but I mean, BYU played Duke in the Elite 8. Like, I mean, arguably the biggest game in BYU sports history. Like, I mean, because national championships, like the pinnacle, BYU beat Michigan, but it was against a 6-5 Michigan team, and BYU played number 1 Miami, obviously 1990 at home, but playing Duke with Cooper Flag and like all their top and their lot, like
Duke as a 1 seed, it's
Cooper
not
Flag.
Just Duke on an off year, like they're
in the
a
Elite 8
title
to go to
favorite.
Final Four. Like, I guess we'll talk about that hopefully next episode.
Hopefully in a couple days.
I know. But I guess before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I guess we
reel it back a little.
On to Bama. Yeah, we're just thinking about Mag guard Cooper Flag. We're just getting the hair in our arms standing up.
Well, what is Robbie? What's your kind of takeaways as you looked at Bama? I mean, Sears is awesome. He's been in he's been
Yeah.
playing for how many years now? Is he a
He's fifth year senior. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's a COVID guy.
Yeah, I mean he's been awesome to watch. Has he always been at Bama? I can't remember.
No, so he was at Ohio for 2 years, and then he's been at Bama the last three.
Okay.
So he was preseason first team All American this year. His years haven't been quite as good as last year, so I did a pretty thorough breakdown. Vanquish the Foe. I really dove into Alabama, talked about some of like the storylines and matchups I was watching. So, and Alabama's really good, and they were in the Final Four last year. And their offense is incredible, and they lead the nation in scoring, 91 points per game. Like they regularly score in the 90s. They've had multiple games where they score 100. Like they gave up 97 to Kentucky this year, and they still won by 5. They beat Kentucky 102-97. But they also had a game where they scored 98 in Missouri, and they lost by 12. They gave up 110 to Missouri in regulation. So they have the fastest tempo in the country. As I was looking at KenPom, they're ranked number 1 in tempo, and they have the fastest tempo for any power conference team in 9 years. It's like their tempo is insane. Like when you watch them, like so many of their shots come in like within 7 seconds of the shot clock. Like they get it, Sears go. Like I saw an interesting stat. So I was watching the St. Mary's game. So St. Mary's is obviously complete opposite. Like
Yep.
we've seen slow down. But they scored 80 against St. Mary's. They're the first team to break 80 against St. Mary's this year. But I was an interesting stat of the game I saw was Alabama scored 42 points in that first half, and 35 of their 42 points came with 2 or fewer passes. Like they get up the court and they just like Sears gets it and he will go into the paint, and a lot of their offenses like the shooters will run. He'll find a shooter and they'll get it up, or they try to get one of their 2 7-foot bigs. A lot different, very different than Wisconsin's big. Like they could rim run, alley-oop, even in traffic they'll throw it up to them, and they'll attack the rim. So it'll be different than any team BYU's played this year. Like they incredibly efficient on offense. Like it kind of starts with Mark Sears, the fifth-year senior point guard, averages 19 points, 5 assists. He's the break, gets it and goes, leads the attack. So interesting to see BYU defense. I'm guessing Mag will kind of get the main assignment on him, trying to slow him down, use his length to maybe just slow down their offense a little bit, so just they're not shooting in the first 7. Because if they're shooting in the first 7 seconds every time, like BYU's gonna be in trouble because they get good looks in transition right away. So that's the first thing on their offense. I mean, they have 5 guys that score in double figures, so it's not just Sears. I mean, since they score a lot of points, they run so fast, they naturally have a lot of scorers. But so they're a very balanced team. Like in some ways, they're similar to BYU in that way. Like they go about 10 deep, like BYU does, and they have a lot of different scores. So BYU's not going to out-depth them. Like that's one been BYU's, like I would say, superpowers this year. Like BYU could go 10, 11 deep, and they just wear out teams by the end of the game because they just cycle through guys. Alabama's similar. Like both teams have really good depth, so that's kind of a wash there. Both teams are deep. They have a lot of scoring options. But Mark Sears is probably the best scorer of any team, any player in this game. I was looking at his 3-point percentage is down a little bit. Like last year he shot 43% from 3. This year he's only 33%, so he's not quite as efficient, but he'll still hoist him. So I mean, offensively they're really good. They're bigs. They start 2 6'11" bigs. Like their top big, it's a Rutgers transfer, like Omoroy. What's his name? Clifford Amoriui. I'm saying that wrong, but he's just a rim runner.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, he's shot blocker on defense. He's kind of like Caleb, but he's a few inches taller. And the other big, Grant Nelson's a good 6'11" big, good finisher on the rim, but he could also shoot. So offense, it's BYU's biggest challenge this year by far, the tempo. So I'm interested to see like offensive rebounding. BYU's been a pretty good offensive rebounding team this year, and in the tournament, like against VCU, they really owned the glass. Against Wisconsin, Richie had 6 offensive rebounds. But I'm guessing they can't attack the glass as much this game, because if they go for offensive rebounds and they don't get it, that's just Alabama's going to torch them in transition. So I'm guessing BYU relies more once they get that shot up. They're going to have people go back on defense just to slow them down in transition, because that's going to be one of the keys for this game. Defensively, I think BYU can have success against this Alabama team. Like Alabama, they have some pretty solid metrics, kind of similar to Wisconsin had solid metrics, but they're not as good of a defense as VCU or as Wisconsin. Like they've been torched sometimes on defense, especially towards the end of the regular season. Like one thing that works in BYU's favor, like Alabama does not force turnovers. Like they're bottom 10 nationally in forcing turnovers. It's just not part of their game. So they'll do drop coverage on pick and rolls unless they totally change up what they've done all season, which I can't imagine what they would do at this point, 35 games into the year. Like they don't double. They don't blitz on ball screens. Like so, Jaeger, similar to Wisconsin, he should be able to come around the edge pretty free and either kind of attack the rim or find open shooters. So I think that's one big thing working in BYU's favor. They do prioritize taking away the three, so I think like Foose should be able to have some one-on-one matchups, and it'll be important since they really do stay on shooters. Like Jaeger is going to have a pretty big game scoring because if he could score like when they're kind of latching onto the shooters, that should open up, and then he should find open shooters. I think offensively, BYU could have pretty good success against Alabama, and then. I mean, so that's kind of the big takeaways. Other things, I mean, they had the number one. I was looking. They had the number one strength of schedule this year in the country. Like they had a really challenging non-conference, and then the FCC was the best conference this year, probably in college basketball. So they're very battle tested. They're a veteran team. So that's kind of the scouting report in Alabama. Like very good offense. Like I think this game's probably going to be in the 90s. Honestly, it could even be in the hundreds. Like Alabama, since they play so fast. And BYU plays like fast, but they do it differently. Like BYU doesn't like get shots up just in 7 seconds. Like they get the ball fast, up the court fast, and they move it. They're really crisp with their passing, but it's more like they a little bit more patient. Like Jaeger comes off pick and rolls, he'll set the offense a little bit more, and then he'll kind of dictate from there. Like Alabama doesn't quite do that as much. They want to get it up and get shots up fast. That's kind of my scouting report. I'd say very fast in offense. They could score. Similar shot chart to BYU threes and shots at the rim. Defense, they try to take away the three. They're solid, but they don't force turnovers. And they've been burned this year a few times. They have a couple of games they've given over 100 points.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's kind of I've listened to a few different people kind of talking about the matchup, and I think they get a little bit lost. They kind of are lumping BYU into, they played the exact same offensive style as Alabama, which is true in the sense of very prolific offense, like both teams really good offenses. But yeah, Bama's tempo is just kind of a beast of its own. I don't know if you're familiar with, I think it's Ryan Hammer does that trapezoid of excellence with that kind of based on net rating and then the pace of that different teams will play in. And Bama was kind of an outlier last year. They weren't in the trapezoid of excellence, which is kind of a good indicator of, hey, you're in this area, you're gonna make you have the right formula to make a good run in the tournament, probably at least the Sweet 16, but you're like a true contender for a national title. And Bama was kind of an outlier, and then this year they even moved out further. And there's other teams like Kentucky, and I think New Mexico was one of those teams too this year. So they got labeled as 2024 Alabama outliers for the trapezoid, and then Alabama, even their pace increased even more from the prior year. So they really are, like to your point, like that 7-second idea and number that they're kind of hitting. It's pretty unreal, right? When you kind of think of like a 30-second shot clock, like that is very fast. BYU and Ken Palm, I think, were kind of more middle of the pack in terms of tempo, 178. So, I mean, yeah, pretty average just in terms of that. And kind of like you said, though, it's, BYU, I feel like we're opportunistic when it comes to tempo.
Where it's just slow, like they get up the court fast, but if it's not there, then the Jaeger gets in the pick and roll. It's not
start orchestrating. And I think it's a big benefit, honestly. I like that the team is able to, I mean, we saw it in the Wisconsin game. The team will get onto these nice, like whether it's off of a steal or whether like it's off of a good rebound where the team is moving well in transition. It's, in the past, I feel like we've sometimes struggled as a team, obviously not with Coach Young, but just in the past with BYU, we've been able sometimes to operate a quick and a good offense, but sometimes struggled with like the transition aspect of like getting down the court, getting to the hoop, or getting a good look really quickly. So it's kind of been cool seeing that. Like just this year, I feel like the team has done a really good job of, hey, we know when to push. We're looking for something. If we can get a good look, we're going to take it right away. But if not, I mean, the team has proven and shown like we get very high quality looks. It's not going to come in 7 seconds necessarily, but we know how to operate in both spaces. So, I mean, yeah, it'll be. I feel like the tempo is going to be an interesting aspect just to see. I think I don't see Bama changing. Like you mentioned, I don't think they're going to change the way that they play. That's part of who they are. It's in their team's DNA, and it's what they did it last year. They've been doing it. That's how Sears coach, or how I'm blanking on the coach's name, Oates. Like that's what he's been building. Like that's how he operates.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be kind of cool. I mean, yeah, just to see how that fits into our game plan, because I think to your point, like you said, I could see us being a little bit more, maybe not quite as aggressive on the boards on the offensive side, just to make sure that we're not giving them wide open, looks and wide open lanes to get down and get shots up.
Mm-hmm.
But just looking at some of the, they beat Houston this year. They beat, they lost at Purdue. Purdue's obviously still a great team. They're in the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Illinois, they beat North Carolina, which, not maybe as good of a win as usual, but yeah, they had a pretty tough out of conference schedule, like in terms of just playing a lot of high quality, high caliber opponents. They played Oregon, lost a close one to Oregon. So, they're not going to be phased coming into this game either way. But to your point, kind of looking, that's how they lost to Florida in the SEC tournament by almost 20. Down the stretch is actually where they've looked the most vulnerable, I guess you'd say. And so that's for me what gives me some hope is I think we can keep up with them offensively, and I could see just as a BYU fan in the past, sometimes when we have run a bit more tempo, sometimes you can shoot yourself out of a game if you're not having a good night shooting. Or if the other team is actually able to create enough, friction on the defensive side for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I'm looking at how does BYU win that game, that's kind of my hope is a little bit of an off shooting night, but also kind of what we talked about in terms of those defensive pieces and presences that we have, from whether it's Keba all the way to Mag, and then as well as Trey Stewart. You've got, I mean, even Richie, like you've got guys that can disrupt and that can actually get in there and, hold their own. That's probably what I'm looking at, is I'm hoping that we're actually able to make them work and get them a little bit off of their flow and their tempo, force them into taking some shots that are not as ideal, and then giving us somewhat of a buffer where we could, I don't know if we win a close one. I view it maybe more as if we win, it's because we have a little bit of things going our way, and that in terms of them missing some shots they might normally make, and then also just bringing a really impressive defensive effort that maybe we win by 10, but it's not because maybe we just outplayed them necessarily. They maybe just had a tougher shooting night. That's, as I'm trying to think of how does BYU win, that's I think maybe where I'm kind of trying to see that's probably what I would like to see.
Yeah. I guess touch on one point you said earlier before how I see this game playing out. So you mentioned before Alabama, they not quite as prolific down the stretch. So they started the season 21-3, and they were going into a game versus Auburn at home, where Auburn was 1, they were ranked number 2, so they were cooking, and they still did fine down the stretch. But they finished the regular season 4-5. And then their first game against Robert Morris in the tournament, they were actually down to Robert Morris in the second half, like a 15 seed. And they kind of pulled away 1 by 9, but they didn't look super impressive. They did good versus St. Mary's, kind of controlled, didn't blow them out, but controlled them the whole way, like the tempo. They did well defensively. But even that game, it was kind of like how Alabama's won. Like they only forced 6 turnovers on St. Mary's. So that's not what they do. They don't force turnovers, but St. Mary's couldn't capitalize. As I mentioned, Alabama doesn't force a lot of turnovers. Part of it because they prioritize taking with a 3, they stick on shooters. So St. Mary's was just 14 for 3. So St. Mary's had a lot of possessions, a lot of shots, but they just couldn't make them. So again, like Alabama, they're very good, but they're not. Last month they haven't been quite as prolific. Teams have been kind of gashing them a little bit more defensively. So kind of how I see this going out. I mean, Alabama's got a lot of things in their favor. They're very talented, got a lot of length, size, shooting. Like they have that all. Like I think their bigs could give BYU trouble. Like it's not like Wisconsin starts 2 7-footers, but they're not very athletic. They're good shooters, but they didn't shoot a lot. BYU kind of neutralized it, but these bigs for Alabama, both of them are very good finishing at the rim. They could catch lobs, and then Grant Nelson, their second leading scorer, he could also shoot the three a little bit, put the ball on the floor. So that's going to be tough how BYU defends him. Like, is like Yegor, Richie Saunders going to guard Grant Nelson? Like, I think that could be a tough matchup that they could take advantage of. And then also, like, if Alabama just takes away the three, BYU can't get the three ball going. I don't see how BYU wins this game. So that's kind of Alabama's key to winning, which gives me hope for BYU, which I do think BYU could take advantage of. I mentioned the turnovers. Like, Alabama does not forcing turnovers is not part of their game. So BYU, like, I think the number one key for BYU is Yegor Dem in this game. He's going to have a big game. He's been really good this NCAA tournament, scoring, passing, rebounding. Like, they're going to need that. Yegor Demon, if we get the Yegor Demon from the first two games, I think BYU could definitely win this game. Because what the recipe is going to win, they're probably going to stay on three-point shooters and try to take away three. So Yegor, when he comes off that screen, goes against drop coverage, he's going to have to show that he could score, whether it's making threes, finishing at the rim. He's going to have to assert himself at the score. And I think if he asserts himself at the score, that should make Alabama respect him a little more on help side defense, and then he could just find those shooters. So I think Yegor's going to need to score like 15 plus points this game. And with the tempo, how many possessions, I can see him having a 15-point, 10 assist type of game. And if he does that, I feel good about BYU's chances. And then defensively, you're not going to stop Alabama. Like, they're going to score 85, 90, maybe 100 points. And if they do that, BYU could still win just because this is how many possessions there's going to be in this game. But we talked about before, BYU has to be good situationally. Like, they can't let Alabama go on too many 12-0, like 15-2 type of runs. Like, when Alabama, like, they're going to have a couple of possessions and they score like 3 or 4 times straight, but BYU's going to need to stop that, just not let it snowball. So BYU's going to have to be good situationally on defense. One, to stop runs, and then like late game situations, put in that lineup, BYU's going to need to do what they've done in their biggest moments this year. The one thing Alabama, they can be a little loose on offense with the ball. Like, BYU doesn't force a ton of turnovers, but Alabama does have quite a, like, they're bottom 5 in the SEC in turnover percentage. Like, they do turn it over a decent amount, and a lot of them are live ball turnovers. So BYU could kind of get back on defense, like, where there's not a lot of gaps. Alabama could have some steal. Like, BYU could force some turnovers.
Turn the ball over.
That's kind of BYU's. I don't think BYU should prioritize the offensive glass, and Kevin Young's a million times smarter than me. Maybe he thinks differently.
I think you gave him your scouting report, right?
Yeah, like he told me, he's like, hey, he's like, he really wanted us to do this episode Monday night so you can have Tuesday to scout. So sorry, KY, that you have one less day of the scouting report, because I know this is like their 8:45 a.m. meeting on tomorrow. So, but what was I talking about?
Kind of giving up the offensive glass.
Yeah, and then I think maybe you get a few more turnovers on that end. So my prediction, I think BYU wins 97-94 for some of those reasons. Like, I think BYU could have some success against Alabama's defense. I think this is a big Yegor Demon game where he scores, is able to have some good success against Alabama's defense. I think BYU, they're just good enough situationally on defense to make a few key stops, and I think they win. Because Alabama, they have shown a few kinks in the chinks. Is it kinks or chinks? Chinks, because kinks is like
chinks or
else.
Kinks. I think they might have both. I think they've shown both.
That's like, yeah. I don't know what that means. They're kinks in their armor. They're chinks in their armor, and then quite as dominant. And I think BYU pulls it out and gets to the Elite Eight. And I play Arizona or Duke, like, give me Duke. Even though it's harder, BYU Duke in the Elite Eight.
I love it.
What's your prediction?
You're giving me, giving me goosebumps again, man.
Yeah.
Just hearing BYU to the Elite Eight, like, it hasn't even happened, but
Yeah, not in our lifetime. I mean, Danny Ainge was there.
Yeah, seriously. I feel good about BYU. It's gonna be. What I like about the matchup is I do think it's kind of. I was surprised the spread was as big as it was, but I mean I do understand just with I think how Bama does have the experience. They were here last year. They are a really good team, but I agree with you. Just looking at how they played as of late, I mean, I watched some of the Robert Morris game in their first round, and thinking, I mean, at the time, still ways away, but kind of going, okay, this they're good, yes, but this is a 2 seed that I don't, it's not as scary having them. Seeing how they're playing doesn't feel like the same way as it's looked. I mean, even just watching Houston, even though they kind of had a close one against Gonzaga,
Like
games do
Alabama
get
as a
tight
two
down the
seed
edge.
is a lot better matchup for BYU than Tennessee as a 2 seed, which is like a Houston
Exactly.
type on defense. Like I would have very
Exactly.
little hope to BYU be like Tennessee.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I kind of liked, and that's what people even called this bracket, right? This portion of the bracket was just offensive fire. Like everywhere you looked between BYU, Alabama, Duke, Arizona. I mean, all of these teams that are still in it. You're like, yeah, there's just some really good offensive teams. I'm gonna go with my take is gonna be, I'm gonna say 85-92.
Who wins?
Similar to I think what you're saying. My gut, my hope is that that we're just able to create. Kevin Young's going to have some things dialed up, kind of like you mentioned, I think situationally and even just in terms of the game plan, how they're going to try to disrupt Bama's offensive flow. To just either, I don't know if he's going to limit the number of, try to decrease the amount of possessions they have, like in total of the game, by maybe finding ways to slow down their offense, or disrupt, kind of like you mentioned, maybe finding ways to generate turnovers, just trying to find ways to limit their possessions. I'm sure that that's something that he's probably, just how I've heard him kind of recap some of the games, like how he recapped the VCU game. I think if you're looking at an Alabama, that's kind of like, hey, they're trying to maximize their possessions, maximize their attempts, because they know the more attempts they have, the way that they play, highly efficient, right? And I don't think we quite touched on this, but he's another example of similar to how Kevin Young and BYU is operating, but a lot like their heat map is very much in the paint and threes, right? Like they're not messing with mid ranges, jumpers, things like that. They're really running like the Mike D'Antoni 2013, 2015 range Rockets, right? Of just like, hey, we're taking threes or we're getting inside and getting really high percentage shots at the rim. So I'm sure that that's just something that Kevin Young's going to be looking at, him and his staff, and they're going to be finding ways. Hey, how can we, not, it's way easier said than done. So that's kind of where I'm going to go with that 85-92, and then just enough that down the stretch BYU has a bit of a buffer, maybe like a 3-4 point lead. We get a stop, they have to foul. So I think it's going to be really close, and it'll just turn into might get a little bit of a bump there at the end with them maybe having to foul, just trying to get back into the game late, because when it's one and done, right? I mean, you see all those games that end, maybe it ends with like a 10-point deficit, but it's like in reality. I remember like watching some of the Houston Gonzaga game. I mean, Gonzaga had the ball, I think, down 2 or 3. They missed, ended up looking a little bit, doesn't look like a one possession game when it's all said and done. I think that's kind of what we get here is it's a one possession game, and then BYU gets another situational stop, and then that just kind of gives us a bit of a buffer at the end. So, and I'm with you. I want Duke too, even though maybe Arizona's not as good. Give me all the smoke. I want
Duke.
it.
We might just for that.
Give me the smoke.
The aura.
I want it.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to the manager aura for McNeese State.
Yeah.
They got one win under their belt. I'm proud of them.
Yeah, go Cowboys. The Will Wade's off to NC State, but McNeese will also always be in our hearts.
Always. We wish him the best of luck. Maybe we'll catch him next year again.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We feel, we both talked about it earlier. We were like, we're riding with BYU. It'd take a lot for me to not pick BYU in this game, if I'm being honest.
I really went back and forth, but I'm part of me may leave my heart a little bit. But like I was trying to be objective as possible. Like I think there is some things going in BYU's favor.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
But the point total for this game is like 176. The next highest Sweet 16 game is 156. So this game is just going to be like bananas.
It's an own. Yeah. I really do hope that this thing is in the high 90s or like somehow breaks 100.
Yeah, like 107,
in regulation.
Yeah, like
it
awesome. It could, honestly.
Yeah. It really could. Because, yeah, I mean, both teams are not just, yeah, I mean, they're both efficient. So it's very possible if both teams are on, yeah, it's just like, oh man, I'd
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I'd love it.
Maybe real quick, the last 5 minutes, I can talk about transfer portal stuff a little bit. So
Oh, yep.
I was going to do Vanquish the Phone mailbag. Got a lot of good questions, but I just don't think I'll have time just with real life work stuff going in the way. So most of the questions are around transfer portal. So I won't get like super specific. I dropped a few nuggets like in the Give 'em Hell Brigham Discord, so a little plug there if you want to see. But it'll be interesting. Like the transfer portal officially opened on Monday, so like Justin Young, who's the director of recruiting, like he's I'm sure been very involved on there. BYU's coaches. I mean, coaches all around the country do pre-scouting of players if they think like maybe top mid-major players, other players that maybe they have connections to if they do enter, kind of do their homework before. But it'll be interesting. Like I mean, BYU every roster now is kind of year to year, and there's going
Yeah.
to be BYU players enter the portal, like probably
Yep.
a handful of players, and it's going to be unfortunate, but that's just kind of the nature. Like you try to retain your top guys, you try to bring Richie back, you want Kaba back, some of those top guys back, but there's going to be guys that enter the portal. So I'm interested. I mean, there's already some guys with BYU connections in the portal, like Josan Sanin from Arizona State. Like I mentioned before, like last year, he literally was committed to BYU. He was a 5-star guard, and he wanted to tweet out his commitment graphic, like to BYU.
Oh man.
But I was just talking to people on his side. Coach was like, "Hey, let's hold off, see what admissions comes through," and admissions is. And I'm sure he's probably smart, but his grades were just so like the admissions just couldn't get around. I had told they were elite bad was like the word I used to his grades. Like always like so.
Elite in the worst way possible.
Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, it didn't work out. Like, glad I guess he didn't tweet out his commitment graph. Like, he wanted to tweet out his commit to BYU. So, I've heard. I don't think BYU goes around him this time. Like, he's obviously got the connection. He's a really good shooter. Basketball-wise, he'd be good, but just may not. I just don't know if both sides will like be mutually like interested in each other. Maybe it'll work out. He'd be very talented. But there's still players that haven't entered the portal yet that I'll be curious. Like I've heard some kind of smoke, like all conference type of players that are interested in BYU. Like BYU has a lot of people interested. One, because like honestly, like the number one reason guys go is money. Like that's gonna like it's any job. Like BYU has a lot of money, so people are going to be very interested in BYU because of that. But also, I mean, it really is like Kevin Young, his NBA system, his style is fun to play with. To be with AJ DeBonsa has a lot of just credibility just in the basketball world. Like there's a lot of things BYU's going. Like I know of at least there's multiple players that have reached out really wanting to come to BYU. Like good players maybe in the past we have taken, and BYU say, hey, no, like we're aiming higher. Like BYU's going for it. BYU's going to spend and recruit to win a national championship next year. So there's players like one kind of interesting player. I don't know if BYU go over him. So there's a transfer from Nevada called his Nick Davidson. He's a stretch 4, averaged 15 points. He was all Mountain West. Like his dad briefly played at BYU in the late 80s. His dad was Kirk Davidson. So I don't know if BYU will go after him. That's kind of a kind of unique connection there. I think BYU they're gonna get another guard. Like I'm assuming Jaegor's gone, but like I've heard like he may not be 100% gone. Like there could be a chance, which kind of surprised me, he may return. Like Delaney Gibbs, his girlfriend, they're pretty serious. Maybe she'll work his magic and get him to convince them. But if Jaegor does go, I think BYU would want to keep down. They'd probably want to add another ball handler. Trevin's going to want to go. They're going to add more shooting, wing shooting. They'll probably want to add like another 4 or 5 type man. So BYU's gonna get a transfer that's not on anybody's fans' radar right now. BYU's gonna get a high-end transfer that no fans thinking about. Like it maybe happens in the next month or so. And be like, wow. And I have some specific names in mind. Maybe it's not even one that's in my head right now. But BYU's gonna get at least one big name transfer. I feel pretty confident in that. Like, and BYU has a really good chance I think next year to start top 10, even top 5 in the poll, just because how they're ending this season, what they should have coming back next year. So that was kind of a little cryptic, but those are some things. Like I'm really excited. I'm really excited right now. I'm focused on the Sweet 16 in this season, but I'm really excited just with BYU's. Like BYU probably like I'm confident they have top 5 NIL in college basketball right now. Like they could even have number 1. Honestly, like BYU has a lot of backing And then just with Kevin Young's credibility, what he's done in year one, like compare people from the NBA, his NBA system, it's fun to play in. Like I'm really excited to see what this offseason is going to look for BYU. Like I'm pretty bullish on it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, this little Igor, renaissance that we've seen too. These back-to-back biggest games that we played, right? And he's looked really good. I know the Athletic put an article together that kind of just talked about like this is just helping boost his draft stock. I mean, he still, he showed some little chinks in his armor as well. Yeah, maybe both. I don't know. Just with his shooting and things, but I mean, he's been putting some of that aside just in these big games. And
honestly, he's almost more suited
well
for the NBA because he's going to see more drop coverage. Like he's not going to see Houston type defense because guys can't put their hands on you, and there's just more shooting and spacing. So in some ways, I think he's going to go in the NBA, and just maybe his shooting won't be there. He could average like 7 assists day one in the NBA.
Definitely. And I mean, I think too, just him, he's got such a. I feel like he even looks a little bit more like his body's developed even just as the season's progressed. I'm not positive on that, but he does look a little. He seems to have become more comfortable than he looked at the beginning of the season. I think he's probably put on some muscle. That will also happen. Like going to the NBA, he's going to continue to develop, build into like more of an NBA body type. But yeah, no, I mean it's like you said. I feel like it's awesome seeing. These are things that are like in our wildest dreams a year ago that we would have been, BYU is going to be aiming for a national title, like NIL spending to put together a team around
3 years
the
ago
number one recruit.
when BYU was in the WCC, fighting for 5th place in the WCC, missing the tournament, and now we're here. Just wild.
Well, I was this is a little off topic, but I was thinking as well just about like that's it's off topic with some just a little BYU. But I was thinking back to when we were in the NIT because kind of how I was telling
NIT
you.
Was like low key lit, like when we made runs, like having in the Marriott.
Oh yeah,
it was low key. Like
it's fun. I mean, and it's better. It's so much better than nothing. First, and it's like. Especially for the traditional BYU approach where you're like, all right, this year we're going to the NIT because it was a rebuilding year. Like we're trying
That's our
to
history. We're building.
We're
trying
to
get the young people.
we're trying to cultivate our freshmen and our sophomore players. And we're hoping in a year or two that we can get into the tournament and do what we did this year, make it to a Sweet 16. That was kind of. If we're being honest, that's probably what our ceiling that we were aiming for. We kind of thought, hey, if we can make it to a Sweet 16, that's kind of the goal. And in year one, now we're kind of flipped that script, which is like, this was our goal, don't get me wrong. And even really our goal was even just make it to the round of 32 as kind of a top end, like, hey, that would be a chef's kiss, cherry on top, great end to the season. But I attended in 2021-22 when we were in the NIT that year. I think it was a year like Gonzaga cooked us like by 40 at home. I remember that game. I think Loner like airballed some threes so badly, like the entire arena like laughed as he when he had airballed one of his shots. Like that's just how bad. That's how bad some of the lows that season were. But we were in the quarterfinal, like getting ready to go to, basically the winner. It was us against Washington State. And the winner was going to go, go into Madison Square Garden for the semis and the final 4 teams in the NIT. And that's kind of like, I feel like there's kind of a curve where it's like the first game of the NIT, you're kind of like, well, let's see. Like, I don't care that much, but like, let's see if we win. Okay, I might jump in a little more.
And then you kind of get into after like two wins. You're like, okay,
exactly. And so this is like the peak. Like your interest is like peaking because you're like, oh, okay. So now, if we win this game, now we're going to be like, cool. The team will get to go. Like, you're like, oh, Foose and Barcelo, these guys. You're like, that'd be fun. Let them go to New York and get to experience that. So we went to the game. We got tickets. Tickets for the lower bowl were like $20, and like upper bowl was like $5. I think they were giving tickets away. The game ends up kind of like falling apart. There's some like questionable officiating calls, like in the second half, I think it is, and it just starts becoming totally unhinged inside the stadium. Were you still? No, I guess you weren't in Provo at that point.
No.
But literally, like at some point, a fan threw a garbage can onto the court mid play, like as the game is happening. A garbage can flies onto the court. I see somebody get taken out by security on the far side.
Yeah.
Fast forward a little bit later, like fans are screaming at each other. BYU fans, like they're like getting into shouting matches. From like 10, there's like a guy in a wheelchair that's standing up from the accessibility
Standing up from his
seats,
wheelchair.
standing up, yelling at a guy like 10 rows in front of him down. They're getting at each other. The guy in the wheelchair who's standing, his wife is like trying to pull him down and is like so mad at him for getting into it with this other guy. I'm like looking around and it's like, you had some of like the true BYU sickos there that like, they're like, oh, NIT game, like,
Yeah.
I will be there. I'm there 100%.
Yeah.
And they were like in the lower bowls because like they're giving these tickets away.
Yeah.
Just though, basically I'm saying though is to go from like, I look back to that moment and and then fast forward to where we are now.
Yeah.
And it just feels like it's like two different realities at this point in terms of like, yeah, fans fighting each other and throwing trash cans on the court over an NIT quarterfinal game to like, we're literally preparing to play Alabama in the elite or in the Sweet 16. And then like, as you're talking about, we've got things set up for a top 10 start to next season, probably with how we're playing right now and with the talent coming in. I mean, it's, I was thinking about just the stark contrast in just a couple years. It's really is awesome. Yeah.
I love that story. That's hilarious. Oh man,
it is. Yeah, leave it to the Cougs and the true fans, man. So
love it. All right, we broke an hour. We're trying to leave it under an hour, but we just had too much good stuff to talk about, I suppose. So thanks for sticking around with us. Hopefully, we can do a Elite 8 episode here in a couple days. That's the goal. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Maybe I'll book a temple session for tomorrow. Yeah, do it 45 minutes before the start time. So yeah. I love it. All right. Rise and hoop.